This week we are finishing the series on fire stopping. Yes, I know we're a couple weeks late. But this life happens sometimes. We're talking fire stop training and why you should get some. Welcome to the show where we tackle the tough questions submitted by installers, estimators, project managers, even customers. We are connecting at the human level so that we can connect the world. If you're watching this show on YouTube, would you mind hitting the subscribe button and the bell button to be notified when new content is being produced? If you're listening to us on one of the audio platforms, would you mind giving us a 5-star rating? Those two little steps helps us take on the algorithm, which helps us get our message out to the ICT industry, which is to educate, encourage, and enrich the lives of the people in our industry. Thursday nights, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. What are you doing? We do a live stream on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, where you get to ask your favorite RCDD, well, that would be me, your questions on installation, certification, design, project management, and even estimating. We even answer career questions. But I can hear you now. But Chuck, I'm driving my truck home at Thursday nights at 6 p.m. I can't watch a video. They are recorded, and you can go to our website at letstalkcabling.com and watch them at your leisure. Finally, while this show is free, and it will always remain free, if you would like to become a supporter of the show, we have methods for you to do that. You can become a Patreon member. You can visit our website and go to our Amazon links page where you can help support the show. We're even taking corporate applications as well. Like I said, fire stopping is one of those things that you want to make sure that you get right. Because if you don't, the consequences are just way too much. People could die because you're not doing it correctly. Well, how do you know if you're doing it correctly? I always say knowledge is power. You have to make sure that you're doing it correctly. You have to get training. Training can be in the form of somebody mentoring you and teaching you and showing you. But when it comes to fire stopping, you really need to go to one of the fire stop manufacturers to get training because there's a lot more to fire stopping than just putting red putty into a wall. Now, every manufacturer has some form of fire stop training. So today I have on the show Unique Fire Stop Systems, and I have Mike Tobias with us. Mike, how are you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Chuck.
You, sir, are an industry icon. I remember going to many of Bixie conferences and watch you walking around. I remember you were the guys who came out with the first split sleeve. And
Yes,
when you
sir.
came out with that, I was like, huh?
I think at that time, Chuck, I was selling sleeves in the parking lot.
And I tell you what, when I looked at that, I was like, that is such a brilliant idea because you don't have to pull the cable out to fire stopping. And I tell you where that was really a good idea, hospitals, right?
Yes.
Because they got their yearly inspections and their cables handle life critical stuff where you don't want to take down somebody's connectivity where it's monitoring a patient, right? You can take that split sleeve, put it around it, seal it off, and they meet their yearly fire stop inspections. I mean, that I thought that thing was so brilliant, so
Well,
brilliant.
thank you. It
Um,
was it was born out of necessity, Chuck. It was how we got our start in the fire stopping business.
and
I
isn't that
think
how
you.
most fire stopping, most products there's a need, and then you got to
Yes.
come up with a need. So,
Yes.
so let me
If you
ask you this.
remember,
Yeah, go
go
ahead.
ahead,
No, you go ahead.
Chuck. You remember my brother Ron?
Yes, I do.
Good. We both had cabling companies back in the day, mid '80s, and we had offices all throughout Florida and Alabama. Anyway, I got a call from my general manager one day in our office in Birmingham, and he explained to me we had an emergency at a hospital. And I asked him who was hurt, and he said nobody, but we just took on this contract, and the previous contractor had penetrated some barriers and left them open, and the inspector was back, and he was hopping mad. So I actually flew to Birmingham, met with the hospital, met with the general manager, determined that we were in a lot of trouble and we had to seal those firewalls. He wanted a metal sleeve in the wall. So we searched the internet. what it was back then, and we could not find any solution. There was nothing available. He was adamant about it being in a metal pipe, and he wanted some red stuff in the end. Little did we know that was intumescent, putty or caulk. So we came back to Mobile. We took a piece of rigid conduit. We threaded it from both ends. We split it down its axis, making 2 threaded halves. We had to go through a process to size that sleeve back around again, which was interesting. And then we slotted a coupling and slotted some plates and went up there and put the sleeve in around the cables. Called for the inspector. He came out, looked at what we'd done. We went down to the hardware store and bought some red stuff and put in the ends. And the guy called for a ladder, which I thought, man, we're really in trouble now. But he climbed the ladder and he took a coin out of his pocket and he tapped on the sleeve and he said, "It's metal. How'd you do it?" And we told him. He climbed down the ladder and he put the hospital off the hook because they were beginning to move patients. They had 10 hours left. So that's how we got our start.
And it's just been a fun ride from there, hasn't it? I mean,
yes, sir.
You guys have come up with a lot of, I noticed on your website that you also do some stuff with race cars too.
I had a second childhood, Chuck, and decided to start racing at 46. And when I bought my first car, we built it, and I was trying to decide what the number was going to be. And I said, well, I was actually 48 by the time I started racing. And I took a marker, and I called it the 50 car. And I was 49 years old. I put a marker down the side of the car and wrote on the side of the car on both sides, "I'm going to win a stock car race before I turn 50. After about 8 races, I took the same marker and scratched out "win" and wrote "finish." So nice. It was trial by fire, literally. No pun.
I was going to say, how appropriate, the Firestop guy, right?
My son's car caught on fire. And in the South here in Alabama, and even in stock cars today, NASCAR is no exception, they consider a firewall a bulkhead. It's not even a firewall. Henry Ford invented firewalls. So he's spinning in his grave, Chuck.
Right.
You see NASCAR on weekends, they're catching on fire.
Yep.
And they're having to bail out. That's because they don't fire stop the firewall, for crying out loud. We invented some sleeves to go in that race car. My son used them successfully. They've been used in some land speed cars and stuff like that. But the racing industry hadn't caught on to the fact that bulkhead's actually supposed to be a firewall that protects the driver, just like a firewall in a building does a person. But they'll catch on soon enough, and hopefully it won't be at the cost of the driver getting burned up.
Well, it took a while for the ICT community to catch on the fire stopping too. I mean, it did. Many times we would, and you were one of the leading people in our industry that educated the industry, because you were a big proponent to say, look, this is a safety issue. I remember at the Bixie conferences and listening to you talk, I was like, man, he's right. Because a lot of people don't know this. I used to be a volunteer firefighter, so I saw the effects of fire and people dying from this. Like, you need to watch this. You guys need to pay attention, right?
Well, I'll tell you, Chuck, I was impressed by an individual I met at Dixie, and that was Joe O'Brien. Joe O'Brien set me down one day over a beer and taught me how important fire stopping was in his experience on board. And it impressed me so much, I decided I was going to actually devote the rest of my life to this task. And that's what I did.
Well, thank you for your work.
Well, I appreciate that. Really, I do.
Yeah.
I'm old now, so I need to go out to pasture. So we've come full circle. We've invented a lot of devices, a lot of very cool devices. And we're all over the internet. Our website's brand new. We've got factory certification training on it now. Our website has been fine-tuned to the point, Chuck, to where if an installer goes there, he selects a system that he wants to use. There are links on there that allow him to proactively, real time, through the internet, get his system pre-approved before he ever steps sight on the job.
Mm-hmm.
And all he needs is his inspector's email and the job site address. and he can
Yep.
do it and be pre-approved before he steps on the site. That's all done on the website, but it's all been a development over time. Back in the day, and even today, we know that a lot of these low voltage installers are not inspected. They don't pull a permit, come in the night. Building owners left holding the bag. So
Yep.
when you talk about Firestop training, it's so critical for everybody involved in the process. And like you say, the manufacturers do offer factory training. A lot of times it seems to be specific to that particular product type. We decided to go all out and just do fire stopping and then show our products at the same time. So it's actually the training we offer is a factory certification training. It's done online. The installer watches a video. He takes a test. If he passes the test with a 100% score, he'll get a certificate. It'll be in his name individually, but it allows his company to buy direct from us at a discount. We have a map of installers on our site, a map of the U.S. I think we're currently at about 800 certified installers throughout the U.S. So once the training's completed, we put them on our map of installers for whoever needs fire stopping within their towns.
And yours truly is on that list.
Very good.
I am on that list. And you were, and Unique Firestop Systems was, I think, the first person to have an online offering. I mean, you did the video, and I gotta tell you, I love that first video that you guys did, right? And I love the way you're standing in front of that wall and you go, "Is this the way that you do your caving?" You take that hammer and you go, "Bam!" I was like,
okay. If my general manager's listening, Tom, do you hear that? They eliminated it on a new website.
I saw that.
Bring it back.
I saw that.
We need to bring it back. Can you hear us, Tom?
Yeah,
the public is speaking to you.
There you go. And like I said, the reason I love that is because I've never done it myself, of course, but I've seen other installers do it, right? I've never done that because sometimes, we kind of get lazy and at that point, and that's where the training comes in, right?
Yes.
So,
and by the way, you'd be surprised how much technology it took for you to be able to hear the hammer coming before it hit the wall.
Exactly. So since you probably, like I said, doing training the longest especially for online stuff.
Yes.
How important would you say it is that someone takes a fire stopping class?
Well, if you want to stay in the business, you need to entertain it because you won't be in this business very long. An inspector has the authority. And something else I want to cover on this is a lot of people don't know who an inspector is. We've had customers call us and say, the insurance agent came out here and was snooping around, taking pictures of us, running our cables. And they took pictures of the firewalls and we threw them off the job site. Little did they know, they just threw the AHJ off the job site. So going in, if you don't know who the AHJ is, you don't need to be penetrating fire rated barriers. Who the AHJ is, you need to go to him or her and ask permission and show them what you're doing in written form. So you get a reply back and you have in your hand a piece of paper that said your penetration's been accepted by the AHJ and you go do the job and get paid. That's what
and for those listening to the show who may not know the acronym, AHJ stands for Authority Having Jurisdiction. That could be an electrical inspector. It could be an insurance inspector, like you just mentioned. It could be a representative for the federal government on one of their sites. It's the person who has the ultimate authority. And 99% of the time, they're going to tell you they want it done by the codes, right? Because the code says we have to bring all architectural assemblies back to their original rating. Well, how do you know if you're doing it right if you haven't been trained, right? And that's the thing about the
Chuck, you'll find out when the inspector shows up.
But that's too late, right? Because now at that point, you've already got the system in. If the inspector doesn't like that system, they're going to make you redo it. Well, now that means you got to pull the cables back out and then redo the system all over again. And that all costs money. Why not do it right the first time? It's easier to do it right the first time than have to go back and do it again later.
A lot of small companies, Chuck, will designate a fire stop expert. So they'll pick a technician, and they'll have that technician go ahead before the installation crew shows up, and he'll alphanumerically identify all the fire rated barriers. He'll go to the prints, he'll determine the hourly rating, and then he'll go and select a UL system to match that rating and his cable count. He'll determine the size of the sleeve needed, the type of sleeve needed, and put a mark on the wall exactly where it's going to go. The installers come, show up, they take their sleeve system, they alphanumerically identify the labels, install the sleeves, pull the cables, install the putty, take alphanumerically identified pictures of that penetration when they're through, and turn it over to the Firestop guy. That Firestop guy puts together an album, a file, and gives it to the building owner. Great stuff.
Yep. And even on some new construction sites, the general contractor will tell all of the vendors on the job site not to fire stop, because they have a separate fire stop contractor coming behind everybody. Because now that's just one point of contact for the GC, because the GC is not, when they look at that cable going through the wall, they're not going to know if that's a voice cable. They're not going to know if that's a speaker cable, which quite often those could be two different contractors. So it gives them one point of contact, and it gives them, and they know that the fire stop contractor has been trained.
Let me interject this, because
Sure.
people are in business. They're in business to make money. If you find yourself in a situation where you have to turn over your fire stopping efforts to a contractor who's not affiliated or associated with you, there's no guarantee exactly what they're going to do. And your name will follow that installation irregardless of who comes behind you. If somebody re-enters your sleeve, you're going to have your name on that label, and somewhere down the road, you're probably going to get a call. And that's why the alphanumeric identification and the digital photos are so important. You need to take them, and you need to keep them and use them when the time comes up.
Yes, absolutely. You need to take a picture of that system, make it part of the as-built package.
Yes.
So that way, when another vendor comes and removes your putty or your caulk or whatever to run their cables through, and they don't put it back in, you have proof that you did it right.
That's important.
Yeah, you touched on it, right? Documentation, and documentation. Those are the three most important things in our
permission.
Yeah, exactly. So you've been training people for a long time. What do you think is the most commonly misunderstood thing that an installer has when it comes to fire stopping?
Chuck, there's so many. Let me pick one.
You can do more than one. I'm okay with that.
A lot of people just don't know what a firewall is. That's the biggest problem. And then if they encounter just a single sheet, they'll say, oh, it's not sheeted on both sides, so take out the claw hammer. It reverts back to training. In a word, I would just have to say training. Literally.
Right. So how many people does Unique have trained now?
I believe, we had to, when we did the new website, we did a little purge because a lot of people had moved on. I think we're about 800, between 800 and 900 throughout the U.S.
Right. And what do you guys charge for that class?
Nothing. There's no charge.
Did you hear that? Free fire stop training. I'll say that again. Free fire stop training.
Let me elaborate on that. There's no charge as far as dollars and cents. It's going to take some of your time. It's going to rob you of a few brain cells because we're going to make you think. We're going to let you know that we already know what you're thinking when you encounter a firewall. So we made it easy. We have fire stopping by the numbers. Fire stopping by the numbers on the website. And once you take our training, you're going to know what fire stopping by the numbers is. And you're going to actually submit your installation to an inspector. And the inspector is my guy, Tom, here at the office. And if it's not right, you won't get your certificate, which is much better than not passing inspection. So try again.
Yep. Are your fire stop systems UL listed?
Yes, sir. All fire stop systems are UL listed or other testing facility listed or they wouldn't be a Firestop system. They'd
Right.
be a homemade system.
Tell us a little bit about that process. What does it take to get a Firestop system listed?
It's a lot of money, and it's a lot of research and development. And, you may do a system, and it doesn't pass. And you have to go back to the drawing board. So it's a lot of money, and it's consistently presenting. We always overkilled, literally, everything we ever made and submitted, because we didn't want to have to repeat a $10,000, $20,000 test over and over. So our systems are probably the most out there, hands down.
Does a UL certification expire once you get it?
No. It's kind of like a post on the internet, if you will, Chuck. It just hangs out there forever.
Lives on
now,
forever.
A lot of people think, even some Firestop manufacturers, some think that they own the UL listings. But I was told by the director of UL that no, you don't own those listings. We do. UL owns
wow,
those
I did not
listings.
know that.
Yes, sir.
I did not know
So
that.
the fact is, you may get a listing and it may be posted and it may be listed in the directory, but UL owns that directory and they own that listing. So when you get ready to change your listing or modify your listing, you have to go to UL and they approve it or disapprove it, and then it's done. It doesn't belong to us as Firestop manufacturers.
Right. Ballpark figure, because you said it's expensive. Ballpark figure. If I come up with a brand new Firestop system and I want to get it UL certified, UL listed, ballparkish, is that $5,000, $10,000, $20,000? What is it?
Well, first, Chuck, don't do that, please, because then you'd be a competitor.
I'm not.
And we've got plenty of those. We're very flattered. I think that some systems are less expensive because they can be promulgated from existing systems. And if you can do that and you have the expertise to make all that happen, that's the least expensive, 10, 20 grand. If you can't do that, it's going to require independent burn. It's going to require, for us, it requires cooperation from intumescent makers to acquire that listing. It's a multiple listing. So we don't actually make the intumescent, but we do make the sleeve. So the intumescent's no good without the sleeve, and the sleeve's no good without the intumescent. The sleeve system contains, controls, and directs the expansion of that intumescent in the event of a fire. So probably a burn test for the average sleeve, say a 2-hour wall, is probably between 25 and 40 grand.
Wow.
And that's before inflation, so I don't have any idea.
Holy cow. I've been telling people 10,000 for my entire career. Every time I teach class, I tell them it's $10,000 to get this certified. I was a tad bit off.
Well, inflation now, I wouldn't mention any dollar figure. I would just have to say it's very expensive.
Well, the reason I do that is because I want the students to realize when I'm teaching them that this is not just something you guys ad hoc threw together and then you paid a $500 fee to UL and boom, you're off and running. There's research that goes into this. There's you have to have it tested, and I didn't realize that you had the ability to do the promulgation testing. I didn't realize you had that ability, but I want because
that's become more and more rare because UL's in business. UL's in business to test systems, so you have to really be on your toes and have cooperation from all the parties to be able to promulgate a system. Most systems today are fire tested.
That's a different show talking about UL and their business model. That's a whole different show.
That's a whole different show.
Yeah, exactly. So one of the things you hear quite often is if you can't find a Firestop system for your application, you can get what's called an engineering judgment, right? Does Unique offer engineering judgments, or do you rely on somebody else to do that for you?
No, we offer engineering judgments. We have people with extra thick walls, old buildings. They need a short sleeve for, a smoke barrier, that type of thing. So we have it within our listings to be able to, if you will, promulgate an engineering judgment for special applications, and especially in situations where there's no alternatives. You got to do something. And if you got an 18-inch thick wall and there's nothing on the market that allows you to install a 24-inch sleeve, you're going to have to call on somebody. And for the most part, that's us. We make everything we sell in-house, everything. So we can make a 3-foot long split sleeve. We can make a 2-foot long fire stop. We can do pretty much whatever we need to, or whatever the customer needs, as long as we back it up with good data.
I was going to ask you. So when you do an engineering judgment, does that engineering judgment reside with you, or after you do it, do you have to send it to UL to say, look, here we're doing this? I mean, how's that?
I don't know how the other fire stop manufacturers are, but we didn't really ask permission, I guess. And now, if I'm supposed to contact UL, I guess I'm going to hear from them.
I don't know if you're supposed to or not. I don't know. I don't know the process. I've always wondered that as an installer, because you're always taught you can get an engineering judgment after they teach you that everything has to be flame test. I always wondered how an engineering judgment is as good as a fire stop system if it hasn't been tested as a fire stop system.
It's my understanding that engineering judgments are produced within the manufacturer by their engineering department, and they have similar systems that they propose within that engineering judgment. So most engineering judgments will have the judgment and then attach similar systems that work in similar circumstances.
Gotcha.
Different applications maybe, but they're parallel, and they deem that they will function.
So there's some kind of historical data that goes along with that engineering judgment that says, look, technically there's not this on the system, but we've got these other systems that perform very similar, and so we can expect the same kind of results.
Of course, they could be from different manufacturers, different countries,
right.
Different applications, but the goal is to stop the fire. So making some kind of effort to most inspectors and AHJs has proven to be worthy of the effort.
Yep. Because I'm on your list of installers, I got that email that came out a little while ago that said Tom's taking over as the CEO.
Yes.
So are you retiring?
Well, I had a couple strokes, and God knocked me down, but He let me get back up. I'm going to therapy pretty intensely, and Tom has taken over. He's run the show for 15 years now anyway. I just been kind of a tag along. I'm just in the complaint department. I don't get many complaints, so it's all good.
Well, you've earned it. You've earned it, because I've watched you put in the hours, brother, and you've came up with the products that have saved a lot of installers. And again, I just want to say thank you from the industry, because you've made some people could say, look, I made an impact in the industry, and because they got better performing cables. You have literally saved lives. That's something to hang your hat on there, buddy.
Trying to make me shed a tear, man. I appreciate that, really, because
not a problem.
It's meant a lot to me, and it's been good for me. It's kept me busy and out of trouble, and it's helped a lot of people, and that's so gratifying. You can't really explain how gratifying it is when a guy calls you and you can smell his hair on fire on the other end of the line.
Yep.
And when you hang up, you've resolved his issues. So it's very gratifying, and I thank you for the kind words.
Not a problem. Let me ask you one final question. If you had the magic ability to turn back time and talk to yourself when you were a young person getting in this industry, what advice would you give yourself?
Stay the course.
Stay the course. Oh, I love that. I'm stealing that one. Stay the course.
Stay the course now.
Yeah, that's so true, because sometimes, because things don't move as fast as we want them to, we tend to change directions, where if you just stay the course, good things come to you. They absolutely come.
You know, Chuck, if you have something physical happen to you like that, and it just takes you out and knocks you down, when you get back up, you have to have the mindset that you're going to get better. And I bought an electric Harley, and when I bought it, the irony was, I said, I don't even need a clutch hand because it's all automatic. And I had a stroke. And my left hand was affected.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm coming back. So now all I have to do is get the strength to hold on to that bad boy, and I'm good to go.
You know, Chuck rides too. I tell you what, if I come rumbling through Alabama with my motorcycle, I'm going to call you up. We're going to ride together.
You let me know. Interstate 10 at the Buc-ee's exit.
At the Buc-ee's. Oh, I love Buc-ee's. I just came across them for the first time on my last road trip. That place is amazing.
That's because you don't live across the street from it.
True. That's very true. So hopefully from that experience, number one, you learned about an amazing individual and amazing products. But more importantly, you came away with how important training is. Because remember, in our industry, knowledge is power.
That's it for this episode of today's podcast. We hope you were able to learn something. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future content. Also, leave a rating so we can help even more people learn about telecommunications. Until next time, be safe.